So my name's John Field. I'm Director of Operations at Keystone Fire Safety. We provide passive fire protection. We install, we service and we maintain fire doors, all under the accreditation of BM Trada. And then we carry out fire risk assessments under BAFE SP205, and we carry out fire strategies. One of our fire engineers is Vicky over at Free Safety. So if you need a fire strategy, a fire risk assessment, or some kind of fire statements for the gateway process, if you're going under building construction that has to go to the building safety regulator, go and give Vicky a chat and say hello. So there's no snazzy animatronics on this. I've just put the words up so you can read them. That's all good. So I'm going to give you an insight into accreditation. It's a big thing at the moment. It's quite important that there's a third party that oversees the activities that you're doing, because that gives some safety and comfort. But I'm going to discuss possibly the positives, and maybe we'll look at certain aspects that could be seen as negative as well, just to make you aware of what's involved. So by the end of this presentation, you'll be able to detail what third-party accreditation is, state the need excuse me, for accreditation, identify different accreditation bodies. So I'm not going to go through every single one, but there are a few that I'll talk you through. State how the schemes work. I'm going to talk through one particular scheme. I might sort of dabble into other aspects as well. Discuss the benefits, and obviously describe the flaws perhaps in the process. So here's a thought to contemplate. And I won't necessarily answer this for you. It may be for you to consider and maybe come up with your own conclusions at the end of this presentation. So when is a fire door not a fire door? That should be the name of a play or a book or something like that. You could write a 10,000 word dissertation on this. And when is fire stopping not fire stopping? So ultimately, you've got a fire door. It might have been installed by someone. They might not be accredited. There might not be that third-party accreditation. Does that mean it's not a fire door? It may well have the 3 hinges. If there's a screw missing, does that mean it's not a fire door? It might be solid. It might have fire door on it. Does it need to be a fire door? Same with fire stopping. You'll look at something. You'll see some cabling. You'll see lots of pink foam, or you'll see fire bat. The white stuff on the picture, but there's no sticker there to say that company that installed it are not accredited. Does that mean that it's not appropriate? Does that mean it's not fit for purpose? Does that mean it's not actually fire stopping? So what's meant by third-party accreditation? So it's the process by which contractors can gain performance certification for their business. It provides reassurance to that the company has been verified, they're frequently audited, and they're certified to carry out their works. So it means a company will come in, a company who are recognised under UCAS as being an accreditation party, and they've come in under certain strict criteria and assessed that particular company to make sure that they can carry out the works and wear that badge to say that they carry our badge and they're carrying out the work according to how we say they're carrying out the work. And we've checked that that's the case. So I'll carry on. Third-party certification is not currently required by law. So I've got that fire door. I may not be accredited to install it, although, as I've said, Keystone Fire Safety are. But does that mean that I can't fit fire doors? Well, no, it doesn't. By law, at the moment, there's no requirement to be third-party accredited in any way, shape or form. It is a good way of ensuring compliant installations by qualified, competent people, because again, they're validated, they're audited by this third-party accreditation company, and they operate under UCAS. One of the main focuses of the Building Safety Act is ensuring compliance. How do you ensure compliance? Well, you get your things installed under a company that has that third-party accreditation. The assigned principal contractor has to declare to the building safety regulator all personnel working on the project are suitably compliant for the task they are undertaking. Generally, that's specifically roles such as principal contractor, principal designer. However, if they've got accreditation, then that goes a long way to reassuring the building safety regulator that they are compliant. You have to fill out your gateway, identify who it is that's going to be working on the project, and identify, well, how can you show that they're compliant. So why is there this need? Well, everyone mentions Grenfell. Whenever we mention the need to do something, it's almost a badge of honour, really. It's, well, because of Grenfell, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. But actually, it makes sense. The golden thread was introduced as a result of Grenfell. By having this accreditation, there's certain activities that you have to do to comply with the requirement, and that will allow you to have this information for the golden thread. And I'll talk about what it is that you need to do as we go along. So again, the need for accreditation. Building Regulations 2012, it's been updated. Materials and workmanship. Regulation 7, building work shall be carried out with adequate and proper materials. Well, how do you know they're adequate and proper materials? They're appropriate for the circumstances in which they are used. They're adequately mixed or prepared. And they're applied, used, or fixed so as adequately to perform the functions for which they are designed and in a workmanlike manner. On top of this, approved document B stipulates if a building owner employs a registered installer, building control body does not need to be notified. That's for certain activities. So it might be someone under Fencer of fitting a front door to a building. Well, Fencer is a third-party accreditation company. That installer is accredited by Fencer. They don't need to contact Building Regulations because that company or that accreditation is recognised under building control and under approved document B. Third-party schemes of certification and accreditation provide confidence that the required level of performance can be achieved, as long as obviously it's installed using the correct materials in the right way by the right people as required by the accrediting party. Building control bodies may accept certification under such schemes as evidence of compliance. Again, that isn't applicable to every piece of building work that you're going to have done, but it does apply for certain elements of building work. It continues, fire stopping. Both of the following conditions should be met. Joints between fire separating elements should be fire stopped. A lot of times we carry out compartmentation surveys and we see gaps between certain materials which could allow smoke and fire to spread throughout the building. That's not necessarily a life safety issue, it's more a property protection issue, but approved document B requires that that's in place. Openings through a fire resisting element for pipes, ducts, conduits or cable should all of the following. And I've missed out a couple there, but focused on the main aspect. Fire stopped, allowing thermal movement in case of a pipe or duct. This fundamentally is why we need that fire bat. We don't need the pink foam, but we need the fire bat, or we need specific mastics in place, because approved document B requires it, which then allows you to comply with Part B of the building regulations. So there are different accrediting bodies. We have BAFE, as I explained. Keystone Fire Safety are accredited under BAFE for carrying out our fire risk assessments. I recently went through the process, SP205. I'm now a validator under BAFE, but if I leave the company, then I don't take that accreditation with me, it stays with the company. The company then get audited under BAFE, and that then accreditates the company for allowing the activity to be undertaken under the recognition of BAFE. We have the Loss Prevention Certificate Board. We have the Institute of Fire Safety Managers. We have the FDIS. We have the NAPFIS, ASFP, the IFC, the IFE. We have BM Trada. We have Warrington Fire. If you notice, Warrington Fire, BM Trada look very similar, was because they're part of the same company. There's all these different companies that you can look for accreditation from. With regards to specifically fire door installation schemes, we have BRE, so you can find companies who are accredited within the Red Book Live on the BRE website. BM Trada have two schemes, one for fire doors, one for passive fire protection. The ASFP have accreditation for fire stopping, fire doors. They also have it for fire stopping. The IFS have an installer certification scheme. BM Trada have the Q mark. FireAS under Warrington Fire. Association of Specialist Fire Protection, as I said, they do doors, they do passive fire protection, and the NAFPAS. So how is it that they actually work? Well, an individual will have to produce evidence to show that the activity they're undertaking is as per the requirement of the accrediting body. They will have a set of criteria under which you have to operate. They will have a requirement of certain materials that you can use, but they will specify you can use this material with this material. You can't necessarily use that material with this material. It will give a specification on how you can install it. It will identify, well, how many screws does it take to fit into that frame for that fire door to be compliant. What you then have to do with this is take evidence. What did it look like before? What does it look like during? What did it look like after? So you have to have those photos, hence the golden thread. It will show the process that you've gone through. It will identify when it was installed, so you can get a lifespan of the product. It will identify the specification that's been used. So this paperwork will identify exactly the process that was taken, the materials that were used, and then it will be the person that's been accredited. So like me, the SP205, I can validate a fire risk assessment. Whoever's undertaken the validation for the fire door maintenance, installation or servicing, or the passive fire protection, they have to sign that document, but it's only them that can sign the document because they've undertaken the validation process, and then the company's been audited to show that we've got the right systems and processes in place to carry it out. So as I said, you have to have before and after photos, records identifying the works completed. Work completed to the recognised specification, and the manufacturer of the products will provide those specifications. So the benefits of some of the scheme. You get strong competitive advantage. Some companies will only install work that's been carried out by accredited companies. A lot of the tenders, in order to apply for a tender and go through the process, you have to have certain accreditation. Believe me, we've got so many different accreditations to do with the different tenders, it can be a bit of a nightmare. But you have to have these accreditation, otherwise you can't even start the tender process. It does help generate new business because people can see they've got that accreditation, they're going to be doing it properly. That's the perception. It shows due diligence on your part. It shows that you're actually going to be monitoring and making sure that what's being carried out, how it's being carried out, is actually what happens. It provides a clear demonstration of installers' commitment to quality, so they will only use those specific products. With the particular aspect here, it gives you association with BM Trada. BM Trada then promote our company. So if you go on the BM Trada website, can you tell me a company in my area who is accredited to perhaps maintain fire doors, and they will come up with a list of the different companies that are accredited under their scheme. There's also the benefits of the scheme, a bit like post-nominals with letters after your name, where you can put all their stickers all over your vehicles, all over your emails. The only problem might happen is when they change that badge, and then you have to change the badge with it. So a particular flaw in the plan, perhaps. Are people aware of the different schemes? So we might be accredited under BM Trada to maintain fire doors, but if we install fire doors, are people aware we are accredited to install them, but if we weren't, are they aware that actually there's different parts of the BM Trada, there's different parts of the BAFE schemes with regards to installing, designing, maintaining fire alarm systems? Are people aware of which element of that accreditation that we're compliant with? Not a lot of people will be aware. So there's some schemes where you can undertake a specific element and you can become accredited for one particular element, but not everything. So if I go back, so for example, throw in there with regards to fire alarms. Again, under BAFE, you can be accredited for maintaining a fire alarm. That doesn't that doesn't give you accreditation to design them. Whereas LPCB, it's the whole shebang. You get accredited, and you can fulfil all the requirements. And the schemes, as I explained, do not mean that you're competent in all the areas of all the subject matter. Does it actually mean that you're going to install the door as required? So under BM Trada, like I've said, they'll come out, they'll audit the person. You have to pay lots and lots of money to become accredited. I believe for the full shebang of all the door and the passive fire, you're talking about £10,000 per person. That's a lot of expense to undertake, but then you've got to make sure that actually I can make that money back and it's worth my while. It does last several years, that accreditation, but they will look to audit the company on a regular basis, so you have that experience to go through, but you have to pay for that privilege for them to come in and audit. Just recently, having undertaken the audit to become a BAFE validator, we then had the company audit as well. So you've got that to go through, and you've got to have all your processes in place. For some of the companies, some of the accreditation organisations, if you have ISO 9001, then you can dispense with a large proportion of the company audit, if not all, because a lot of the things are catered for under ISO 9001. But that's another expense that you have to go through to become ISO 9001 accredited. You then have to be audited on a regular basis. Now, I have added further reading for everybody once you get the slide pack. And And there's guidance on here from the ASFP. There's different elements of the manual to the building regulations. And there's the what is third-party accreditation produced by the FPA. Do we have any questions?
Yeah. Do we have any questions for one at the back?
I'll stay here because of the camera.
Hiya. So my company looks after building compliance and obviously fire stopping, big part of it. What's the requirement for having a fire stopping report that identifies all the elements of fire stopping within it? Is that a requirement?
Okay, so what you can have is you can have fire stopping installed, but the only way you can necessarily say that it's going to do the job in which it was intended is to have a report to identify how it was put in, what materials were used, what specification was used. So again, I go back to the very first slide. If you don't have that report, does that mean that the fire stopping isn't suitable? How do you know that that fire stopping has been installed? That wall might be an hour wall. You might have that fire stopping. How do you know that it's going to stop a fire for up to an hour if you don't necessarily have that paperwork?
So it really is just a piece of evidence to confirm that you've completed your fire stopping?
Indeed, definitely. However, as I've said, there's no legal requirement for the accreditation aspects. And also, if you can't necessarily prove that, the fire service aren't going to come in and take you to court because you can't prove it, but perhaps there's that peace of mind. However, if you're going to get a company in to install it that's accredited, it will cost more than a company that aren't perhaps accredited, but maybe you've got that peace of mind that they've done it correctly and that they're going to do it. And then, like I said, the golden thread element. You know when it was installed, how it was installed. You get then the lifespan of the actual product itself. So you know, in essence, you can do your 5-year, 10-year, 15-year plan. Actually, in 10 years' time, the Hilti Mastic might well have its life expectancy. We might well have to replace that at some point.
So the reports are good to have, but not necessarily statutory required at the moment?
They're not statutory, no, indeed.
Okay,
Definitely.
thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions from the floor?
I'm not going to do that. I've stunned them in silence.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, confused everybody. Sorry, let me stand up so I can say I am standing up, honestly. I'm just really little. Any more questions? Ah, there we go. I'll come back down.
When do you have to replace fire doors? Is there a legislation say you have to replace them?
Okay, so if you had someone from BM Charter, if my company came in, we have to survey the doors under a certain strict criteria. If a certain number of those aspects are met as to fail, or there's a certain value of work that needs to be carried out, under the BM Charter scheme, it will stipulate the door needs replacing. But that doesn't necessarily mean it needs replacing, if that makes sense. If a fire door, you would look at the gaps, you would look at the smoke seals, the intermittent strips, you would look at the hinges, how solid, is it warped? So there's lots of aspects to consider with regards to looking at that door and whether it's still fit for purpose. But under certain schemes, if you reach that target, it will need replacing. However, that doesn't necessarily mean it will need replacing. That's the key thing. So it's a bit of a grey area, but yeah, under the accreditation schemes, it will need replacing then. However, if it's still to some extent fit for purpose from what you would perceive, so the gaps are kind of acceptable, the hinges aren't totally ideal, but they're still doing their job, the door's still standing, it's still straight, then the chances are it'll be fine.
Thank you.
Definitely, thank you.
Thank you. Oh?
Oh.
Hi. What are the legal requirements for fire door maintenance?
Fire door maintenance. Okay, so the government did produce a guidance document. It's not under any accreditation scheme, and in fact, it falls below what the accreditation scheme requires. There's more to it under the accreditation scheme, but if you Google the Fire Safety England regulation, government guidance, it will come out with the different important regulations that you have to look at as the responsible person, as it were. And under that, there's a section under fire doors, and it will give a fantastic guidance document on what it is that you need to look at. So you have to look at the self-closer, the hinges, does it close effectively?
No, what I meant was, what is an occupier or responsible person's legal responsibility to get that fire door maintenance done, and how
Okay,
often?
so it depends. It depends actually on the type of premises. So if it's a high-risk building, you need to look at the communal doors every quarter, every 3 months, and you have to look at the front door every year, or your best intentions, endeavours to try and obtain access to the flat to look at that door. Generally, under the fire safety order, you have to maintain a means of escape. So in order to do that, you've got to make sure that the doors are compliant. So generally, the guidance is roughly every quarter, every 6 months. Definitely every year, you'll need to do a proper maintenance check on the doors, but you could do it on a regular basis. Generally, I would suggest every quarter, you have a look at the door, get them serviced every year, and you would then be satisfied and compliant. The problem comes, so on a general building, there's no real necessary defined, you must do it this often. With the higher risk buildings, there is a defined, you must get it done every quarter and the front doors every year.
I guess for general buildings, it's best practice.
So I would suggest once a quarter have a check of them, because you've got to maintain that means of escape, and every year I would suggest you service them to check that they're still fit for purpose, because if you don't check them and something happens, then you'll basically falling foul of the fire safety order, and you're not maintaining that means of escape and maintaining that fire safety element.
I think the critical word here is, or sentence is, maintaining that fire escape.
Yes, that's
So I have a building, I need to maintain that fire escape. What kind of qualifications am I looking for from the people who are going to come and do that maintenance?
So again, ultimately, the government have produced this guidance, and it really is for the lay person to utilise that guidance and not have to get a third-party company to come in. If you feel, once you've gone through this process, that actually there's some things that I'm not happy with because they don't meet this government guidance, then the idea is you get someone in who's competent and qualified to take a further look at it, and they would then be able to give a proper judgment. But if you go by that government guidance and actually, do you know what, it doesn't meet that, then getting someone else in who is competent and accredited, that would be that point and that moment in time.
So the government guidance doesn't necessarily stipulate that a competent person needs to look at it.
The whole point of the government guidance is it's not a competent person per se. It's not someone you have to pay to come in. All you have to be able to do is read that guidance, understand it, and then look at those doors in that fashion, because they don't want to be too onerous on a business. What they don't appreciate is generally, if you're building manager of a tower block, you're going to be the building manager of several tower blocks. You haven't got the time to do all this, so you're going to get a company in to do it on your behalf. And that's what we find. That's where we do a lot of our servicing. We come in, we service and maintain the doors, because the company, whoever's the responsible person for the buildings, they don't have the time to actually fulfill that role and that task. So although the government have come up with that document to say it could be a lay person, people don't have the time to do it. So you end up getting an accredited, or getting a company in to do it who you would deem as competent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.